Hey Jen, want to talk about New Year's resolutions for your marriage?
I can think of a few things that you need to take care of.
Great. Today we're going to discuss some ways to assess your marriage and to set some new goals for the new year. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Intimate Covenant podcast, where we believe the Bible and great married sex both belong on your kitchen table. That's right, we're talking about holy, covenant-bound, intimate relationships with hot sex.
We're Matt and Jen, founders of Intimate Covenant. We offer biblical teaching and resources to help married couples achieve a fuller relationship and an extraordinary sex life. For more information, visit our website, intimatecovenant.com.
Welcome, friends.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us for Intimate Covenant 2024 podcast.
It's pretty exciting. New year and time to do some New Year's things.
Yes, and including starting our podcast schedule off a week later than we had planned.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties last week and actually some just a few moments ago, but we're hopeful that things are transmitting this time. Last week we had everything recorded, everything ready to go. We were ready early, in fact.
It was
Uh,
great. It was going to be great. And you started editing the episode while watching your Dolphins lose their game.
yes,
And you hit like play on the audio part of it, and it sounded like the teacher from Charlie Brown.
it
It
was
was,
garbled. It was a garbled mess. I don't know what happened there.
but it
Uh,
was 10 o'clock
we
p.m.
were out of time to record a new episode, so here we are. We delayed, postponed things one week,
Yeah, yeah.
and hopefully, as we're recording this, the same thing's not happening. I guess we'll find out.
We're putting something out
If
tomorrow.
if you're hearing our voices, everything worked out.
That's right.
So that's what we're hopeful.
But
Um,
we are finally putting out a January episode, and just wanted to take a moment and kind of share some exciting things that will be in store for Intimate Covenant in 2024, do a little bit of a look back and what 2023 held for Intimate
mhm,
Covenant.
mhm.
But before we go there, Matt, the biggest news, the most exciting news, why will 2024 be an amazing year, Matt?
Well, we are expecting to be grandparents this year.
We
That's
are being promoted to Doc and Grammy.
Yes, so that's pretty exciting. We really can't really focus on much else.
Nope,
So
nope.
it's that
It's
exciting.
all about that coming grandson.
Yes,
Gonna
very
be a little boy, and we are just over the moon.
yes. So coming soon, June, early June, I guess is the expected dates.
Yeah.
But we're super excited. But I did tell Jen, and I'll share with you guys as well, that maybe, and we'll let you decide, but maybe our time as marriage and sex podcasters might be coming to an end, because who is going to take marriage and sex advice from grandparents?
From grandparents. We are about to
So
be grandparents, so take it what it's worth. This may be the last episode
yeah,
for
which
some
we'll
people.
see. We'll let you decide if our message is still relevant or not. But we do, like Jen said, have some very exciting things to share, both in terms of where we've been and where we're going. We just wanted to at least take a moment to acknowledge that and to share some upcoming news with you.
And towards the later half of this episode, we're gonna walk through with you a tool that we use in our marriage, called State of the Covenant, for that will help you in your marriage to look at your past year and set some goals for your coming year. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a minute.
But anytime you look forward, it is essential to look back.
Yeah.
And we did want to take a moment and just kind of look back at what this year has held for us. It
Yeah.
was easily our busiest year, in terms of what we've done with Intimate Covenant, both in terms of the
Yeah.
podcast, obviously, but also traveling and other events and other things that we have done.
But ironically, that's not where we started in
It
January
it
of
right.
2023.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, January of 2023 found both of us struggling, if we're honest and
Truly.
vulnerable with our audience. We had definitely gotten some things out of line and priorities a little off kilter. And so we had a major reset personally in our marriage.
Hmm.
And really within Intimate Covenant, that was one of the major things that had been eating up too much of our mental, emotional, physical, time,
Yeah.
kind of in our life. And so, one of the things we did at the beginning of 2023, once we realized some things needed adjusting, is we dropped the podcast down to an every other week format. It had been weekly up until that point, and we went to every other week. And frankly, we were both pretty nervous about that because we were fearful of losing our audience. We were fearful
Yeah.
of what that would mean.
You're right. That was really a big step for at least me personally.
Mhm.
And like you said, there was quite a bit of fear and anxiety and angst about doing that. But God just continues to amaze us and bless us, and you all continue to amaze us and bless us. What we found was that while our download numbers per episode, sorry, our total download numbers may have gone down, our total downloads per episode increased by over 60%.
Which is amazing.
Yeah,
We were
that was
putting out
just,
less content, and yet more downloads were happening. More people are
yeah,
listening. More people have found out about the podcast. And that was, like you said, Matt, that was incredibly humbling to see those numbers coming in. I mean, we don't do this for the numbers,
sure, of
but the
course not.
numbers help us know, that it matters. And that, there are those that are hopefully gleaning from this. So
Hmm.
thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for really, thanks for your reviews and your ratings. When you leave a review for something, I think we all tend to think like, what does it really matter whether or not I review something or not? But we're here to tell you that being on this side of it now, we know reviews matter a lot.
Yeah, in the podcast world, it's just such a huge thing. When you leave a review, it just says that this content is relevant to
Yeah.
people. And so we get found by folks that might not otherwise be exposed.
And we're going to tell you in a little bit later in the podcast where we got found from someone we would have never,
Absolutely.
ever had the opportunity to be a part of their life.
Yeah,
So,
in a very impactful way. So,
yeah.
thank you for those of you that have done some reviews and ratings. If you haven't reviewed or rated the show in a while, we would be extremely grateful
Right.
if you would do that. Your feedback on Apple or Google or Spotify or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, wherever you can put a review and a rating, that would be just, we would just be so grateful for that. So thank you in advance for doing that.
Right.
Um, I would just share that, I mean, we talked about how how excited we were and are about the podcast, and even in spite of dropping to an every other week episode format, I should say. According to our podcast distributor, which is called Buzzsprout, for whatever that's worth, Buzzsprout tells us that our podcast is in the top 10% of all podcasts in 2023.
Not just the, marriage or religious or sexuality or any of the, like, not just in a category. It's saying top 10% of all podcasts. That blows my mind. Like, what? No.
Me too. It's unbelievable that that is the case.
We're just Matt and Jen.
Just Matt and Jen, podcasting from our upstairs game room.
Our humble
Yes,
abode.
our non-fancy recording studio. And incidentally, if you're on YouTube and you can see, uh, hello, and you can see some of the updates that we've
Yeah,
made to
we got
our
the
equipment. And
fancy microphones
yes,
in front of us now, so we
so
look a little bit more official, but it does not feel like we're official enough to be in the top 10%. But again, that is all about you all,
that's
and
you all,
we
and
are
that's God spreading the
humbled,
message, right?
and that is God's work. That's right. So it's not about us, but it is about the power of God's message, and that there are souls hungry for the knowledge of God's beautiful plan of marriage and hungry for real talk, vulnerable talk. That's what we hear from you all the time is just how much it means to you that we're here and doing this, because it is putting a voice out there that God does have a beautiful plan
Yes.
for marriage and for sexuality, and the holiness of that. And so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We
So
are immensely grateful.
Matt likes to geek out on the numbers and who is listening and where they're listening from.
I do enjoy that data. It is interesting.
So for those of you who are interested, Matt has a list of our most popular cities.
Top 5 most popular cities all happen to be in the United States. And starting with number 5, the 5th most popular is actually a city we've never done an event in.
We've never been
We've been
here.
close.
We know some people who live around this area, but not in this
That's
area.
right. So number 5 is Indianapolis, Indiana.
Shout out to our Indianapolis
Yes.
listeners.
Thank you, Indianapolis.
Yeah, whoever you are, there's a lot of y'all listening.
So let's get there. Let's
Yeah.
make an event happen in Indianapolis. We
2024.
clearly have some listeners there, so that
Yeah.
would be fun.
Number 4, Matt.
Dallas, Texas. Not surprising, in the home state. So
In the home state, we've done a couple of events
Yeah.
in Dallas,
Right,
Texas.
right.
So yeah, and then who's
Number
holding the number 3
Number
spot?
3, this was surprising to me because this is literally where we are, and that's Houston, Texas. So
It's surprising it's not number 1, but then again, we're not surprised because most of our friends aren't actually listening to this podcast, we think.
probably true.
At least they're not talking to us about
They're
it.
too embarrassed to turn it on. Number 2 is little old Bowling Green, Kentucky. No offense, I don't mean that in an offensive way,
We
but
love our friends
little
in
old Bowling Green. We did have an event there not long ago, so maybe that's part of the reason for the popularity there. But we were
Who's
thrilled.
holding the number 1 spot, Matt?
Number 1,
Most listens,
actually a
most
place,
downloads
yeah,
happen in
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Thank you. We
Y'all
appreciate you.
showing up.
We've done a couple events in Tampa. That's one of the many places that I grew up as a child, so
That's right.
have a special
Oh,
affinity.
man.
Thank you, Tampa.
So, top 5 listening cities we're all in the United States, but what is shocking to me is the number of countries that the Intimate Covenant podcast is listened in.
This is truly remarkable. If you had just make a wild guess in your brain,
Oh, yeah. Okay, everybody come up with a number.
the number of countries, and then be as shocked as we are that that number is 67 total countries in 2023.
I would think like
6
6 or 7,
Yeah.
not
That's
67
that's right.
countries.
I didn't even know there were 67 countries in the world.
Not true. That is pretty phenomenal. So if you are one of our international listeners, thank you so much.
Yeah,
How amazing.
And that comprises every continent other than Antarctica.
We need, does anybody know like a scientist down in Antarctica that we could, send them the podcast?
Yeah,
How cool would that be to get an actual listen from Antarctica?
that would be pretty crazy, but 67 total
That's
countries.
amazing. If you're an international listener, send us an email. Just tell us where
Where
you
are
are
you?
and where
Yes.
you are, and
Love that.
and that would be cool. All right. The other thing you love looking at the numbers of is what our most popular episodes are. So the top 5 episodes that we created in 2023, not necessarily top 5 ever,
Right.
because we've been doing this podcast now for I don't know how long.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Who knew there were so many topics to talk about? I digress, Matt.
Top 5.
5.
Okay, are we starting with number 5? Let's start with number 5.
Of course.
So number 5 is episode 137, titled "Asking for Orgasm."
Lots of downloads on that one.
Lots of downloads there. Number 4 is number 140, which is titled "My Wife Has No Sex Drive."
Okay.
Also a very popular episode.
Yeah.
Number 3 was actually one of our Q&A sessions.
Yeah, this is curious to me. The Q&A session titles don't often, they don't have the shock factor that Matt likes to put into titles.
It's not always, but it was episode 130, which is a Q&A session, including topics about or discussions about sexual frequency
Hmm.
and kids and rejection and wives' insecurities. So that was apparently a popular
A lot of
episode.
people wanted to listen to that one. All right, number two.
Episode 132, which was titled "Am I Taking Too Long to Orgasm?" So
So we've got several in our top five that have to do with orgasm.
uh,
Not surprising.
not surprising. And number one,
Number one, I am not surprised. What is the number one episode created in 2023, Matt?
episode 136, titled "Sex Toys."
We got a lot of curious listeners out there
Yes.
about sex toys, so we'll just leave that at
Hopefully,
that.
hopefully those episodes were helpful to you as well.
Oh,
Um, but we certainly enjoyed creating all of these episodes. And again,
me as in you or me?
well, we'll just group that together. It's a we thing.
It is a we thing. I'm here for it, Matt. All right, the other exciting thing that happened in 2023 for Intimate Covenant is that we added a podcast sponsor.
This has been just a tremendous blessing for us.
Yes.
Not only from the sponsorship standpoint, in that sponsorship really goes a long way towards helping us pay the bills and expand our reach.
Hmm.
But more so, that sponsorship is from our good friend Derek Finley at Open Door Financial Advisors.
Yes,
And
just getting to know Derek on a personal level and working with him, regardless of what the podcast had to do with that, has been life-changing
truly,
for us. Derek has been able to speak into our lives and to work with us personally, and what I love most about Derek, he's not the first financial advisor we've worked with.
right?
Um, but what I love most about him is that he is the first financial advisor we've worked with that has a shared faith with us,
Yes.
and as such understands the priorities of our life, and then is offering financial advice based in that
Hmm.
shared faith, shared priority views.
Shared values, shared
Yeah.
everything. It's just it's a having that common eternal perspective
Hmm.
has made such a big difference. And Derek just gets our individual unique situation.
Yeah.
And so because of that, he's able to give us advice that follows along with where we want to be and what our real goals are.
Right.
So it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not
No.
a sell me all the products kind of approach.
No.
It's just been solid, expert, but down to earth, real advice, and that's made a big difference for us. And we are confident that he would also be of help to you. So
Yes.
as much as he's had an impact for us, I know and expect that he could have at least as big of an impact in your life in
Right.
helping you plan for your financial future.
Right. So let 2024 be the year that you get your feet underneath you a little bit financially, if that has been a place where you have struggled, or if you're blessed with a lot of assets already, let Derek help you be better stewards
Yeah.
of those assets. No matter where you fall, Derek's your man.
Yep. You can contact Derek. You should contact Derek
Please
at
contact Derek.
opendoorfa.com, where finances meet faith and family.
All right. So the other thing, and you alluded to this when we first started, 2023 ended up being a year of a whole lot more traveling to marriage days and marriage weekends than we anticipated.
Yes.
Again, in January of 2023, we were both kind of like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And we did a lot of realigning, personally and with Intimate Covenant. And if you had asked me in January, I would have said that probably is going to equal a quieter year. And and then God said, maybe not.
Yeah. Right. Right. You all had just you were ready for lots of travel, so that's where we
Yes.
went.
But thanks to the realigning that we did, we could do that in a way that didn't negatively impact us in our marriage. And so
True.
and we can kind of talk about that in a little bit, how it is that we were able to maintain the balance of us. But
Hmm.
um because we were able to go and do all this traveling, man, we've met so many amazing
Oh
people.
man.
I am just floored and humbled at the opportunity that gets put before us to meet so many of you and see the power of God working within your marriages. It is it is just awesome,
Yeah, right,
awesome to
right.
get little glimpses of the power of healthy marriages within God's kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, like you said, Jen, with just so many new opportunities, new friends that we have met along the way, and this year was such a great chance to do that. So
Yeah.
we had marriage days in Dallas, in Tampa, in and the last 3 days. So it's 5 total. These last 3 though were all new cities
Yeah.
that we had never had an event in, including Nashville, Seattle, and St. Louis.
That was
Um,
amazing.
so being able to travel to those places, number one, is just fun for us.
Mhm.
But to be able to meet new people is really where it's at for us, and we just really enjoyed that. So we do still have some openings available for 2024. We have a
Yeah.
pretty busy year already, and we'll kind of allude to that in a minute. But um, uh, we certainly would be open and interested in traveling this year. Our next event is in Cedar Park or Austin,
Mm-hmm.
Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
In February.
yeah, we've been trying to get this to happen for a long time. It's so close, but we're very excited about that event
Yeah.
in Austin, and some other things on the horizon that we'll get to. But one of the other big things, of course, the big thing for us every year, really the highlight of our year every year with Intimate Covenant is the retreat.
We love our retreat. We love getting to put that on. It's a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it. This past year, we sold out again.
Mhm.
We had over 50 couples there. Um, Probably my top retreat yet.
It was
It
amazing.
was so great. And a big part of what made it so amazing was our partnership with Justin and his wife, JL Gerhardt. Justin is the creator of Holy Ghost Stories. JL's his editor. I mean, the two of them together are a powerhouse
Really,
couple.
really, it's an amazing podcast that he puts together. And if you're not listening to Holy Ghost Stories, you should just do that.
You need to be
You
listening
need to
to
be doing
that.
that.
But he, his content and what he brought to the retreat just teamed up so well with our theme and where we wanted to take the retreat this past year. And so it just all went together to create a truly
Oh,
special weekend.
yeah,
And we're
it
so thankful to
worked out
Gerhardt
very nicely.
for being a
So
part of that. Thank you to those of you that joined us. We had about half and half as far as new attendees, people who had never been to a retreat before, and those returning from
mhm,
previous retreats. So we love that. We love getting to meet new people. We love hearing your stories of how what it is that brought you to the retreat and your plans for returning in the future, and
yeah,
that's really
absolutely.
cool.
So looking forward, if
We're
you
doing it
we're
again.
doing it again. We are already booked with the hotel, September 19th through the 21st this year.
Mhm.
And you should probably be aware registration will open on February 14th. So that is not very far away.
Not far away. Only needed a deposit to reserve your spot. But go ahead and plan to get in. What a perfect Valentine's
Perfect
Day gift.
Valentine's Day gift.
Because we do expect to sell out again. So
I would not be surprised.
put it on your calendars. All right. The other big thing we added in 2023 was Patreon.
Yes,
We, at the beginning of the year, started our Patreon community. And we have been just overwhelmed with
truly.
the number of supporters that have joined with us, partnered with us through Patreon. That has been, I keep saying it, but I can't find a better word. It's been humbling.
Yeah, truly.
It has just been wonderful to have that avenue of creating that community and gleaning from the support that our Patreon members are sending our
Yeah,
way.
we're just overwhelmed by the number of supporters who have chosen to not only take part in it with us in terms of downloads and recommending and word of mouth, and that's not to diminish that kind of contribution and
Hmm.
partnership, but
Hmm.
the number of you that have determined that you wanted to make a financial contribution to this work is just been overwhelming to us. And so the generous support of Patreon has really become a primary means in how we are able to keep doing what we're doing in terms of the
Mhm.
events, the scholarships that we're able to offer at those events, and just paying for some of the general operating expenses in making a lot of these things happen.
Right.
It's really been just tremendously overwhelming to us. So thank you, Patreon. If you're not on Patreon with us yet, um, we would love to have you, and we would certainly appreciate your support in that way.
And
And
yeah, I was going to say, while supplies last, is this where you were going?
that's where I
While
was going.
supplies last, we are giving away exclusive Intimate Covenant swag if you join us on Patreon.
Yes.
So, I
So
mean, who doesn't want Intimate Covenant swag?
yeah,
You'll be the envy of all your friends.
yeah. And if you want to see what that looks like, you're gonna have to go to our Patreon page to see what is being offered.
Yeah.
You can find us at patreon.com. That's Patreon, patreon.com/intimate covenant.
Okay, so we alluded to this a little earlier when I was talking about the power of the podcast and it reaching people we would have never reached in any other circumstance. And that is what happened this past year. Actually, it happened a couple of years ago, but events got in the way to slow this
Yeah, but so Jen,
down. And then now
where are we going, Jen, in 2024?
we are becoming international because we are going to crazy China and the United Arab Emirates. What?
Yeah, that's crazy, and it's a
All of our
very
listeners are going, excuse me?
That's right. It's a very long story how this happened, but in short, we can say that
Mhm.
this is all because of the podcast, and it's
Yeah.
just one of the amazing things about the internet is that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But our host for these pair of marriage retreats
Mhm.
is it's a private school for the children of expats who work abroad
Mhm.
in China and the UAE, that is Dubai. So we'll be ministering to the married staff and to the families that are associated with this organization in those specific locations.
Never in my life would I have dreamed of going to these locations. Would I have thought this would be happening, let alone that we would be going to have marriage retreats in these two
And
locations.
and
So
we're still trying to convince Jen that this is actually going to happen, but
it's gonna happen. This actually kind of got in the works before COVID. You can imagine how COVID put a halt to all of this. So here we are, 3, 4 years later, and the pieces are finally coming together to make this happen in April.
yeah,
Like we are in the process right now of all the visa applications and all. You wouldn't imagine. You do.
it's
You can't
crazy.
imagine, but it is great
It's
for
crazy.
somebody like me, who I am not a traveler in that way. It's crazy, but thankfully this group is treating us exceptionally well. They're making it a smooth process, and so um, we're we're excited.
So
It took
we
a little while for me to get on board to be excited, but I am now excited.
she's getting on board, but we just ask the main reason we announced this today is
Yeah,
we really just pray that and we ask that you would pray
yeah.
that we would have smooth travels, that the process would be easy, and we pray that we can be positive influences in the marriages for these folks that we're going to be
Crazy. And
speaking with.
if you're listening from one of these two locations, just know we are so excited to come meet you.
Yes,
We cannot wait. It is
yes.
we're just blown away that this opportunity has been handed to us. And so, yeah, Matt, we're going
We're
international,
really
baby.
looking forward to this. So that's a quick look back, and a brief look ahead, in terms of
Yeah.
where things have been, the busy year that 2023 was, and looking ahead at 2024.
It's
And because of that, well, first of all, thank you. We do want to again just reiterate how grateful we are that you've joined us for that. And
yeah.
in this theme of looking back and looking ahead, we felt like it was appropriate to encourage all of you to do the same thing for your marriage.
Right. We kind of wanted to land this episode on just an encouragement to you. how can you use this tool of looking back and looking forward within your marriage? New year is a natural opportunity to just look back on what you've experienced as a
Mhm.
couple. And then perhaps most importantly, to plan for new areas of growth and deeper connection. And so this is something you and I have been passionate about over the past couple of years, and more so that we're trying to be very intentional about having what we like to have, like an annual or semi-annual conversation. And so we've termed this, we took what we were already using within our marriage and made it official. We gave it a name. We have termed this the State of the Covenant, and it's our State of the Covenant conversation. So again, it typically happens at the first of the year, and then it works out well that our anniversary is in July, so halfway through the year. So
Right.
that typically is another time that we tend to have another State of the Covenant type conversation. But just a time to really have a pause and be intentional and purposeful about where we are, what we've done, and where we want to go.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point, because I think we should make a distinction here. We've been talking in the podcast about the logistical things, like where we've been and where we're going with Intimate Covenant. But
Hmm.
to be clear, that's not the kind of conversation we're talking about for the State of the Covenant. It's
Right.
not a logistical conversation. It's not about planning out your vacations or your financial plan for the coming year. This is a conversation to help assess where we are
Hmm.
and what we want to do to make our connection and our marriage itself, our relationship, how to make it better.
Right.
So we created a tool to help guide that conversation.
Hmm.
And it's available on our website. If you go to intimatecovenant.com/shop, you'll pull up the State of the Covenant
Hmm.
product, and I'll put the link in the show notes. If you don't want to even do any navigating, you just click a button, it'll take you right to it.
Right.
It is for sale on the website, that conversation guide, and we're only selling it for $2.99.
Less than
I
$3.
don't think you can get a Starbucks anymore for
No, you
2.99.
cannot. You cannot. And
It
if you are a Patreon subscriber, we make it available for our Patreon
it is free.
subscribers
It
for
is free.
free.
Yeah, it is free to Patreon subscribers. So, that may be another motivation for you to join us on Patreon. But each of the previous 2 years, around this time every year, we've devoted an entire episode to just talking about the State of the Covenant and what it is and how to go through that process. We're not going to do all of that detail again this year
Yeah.
because it's already available.
Yeah.
You can go back and check out those previous episodes, but and that's either episode 74 for the original one or episode 126.
Hmm.
Go back and look in the archives. I'll link those as well if you want the more details. Since many of you, I don't know, maybe most of you have already been listening for a while, you've maybe already heard that episode. We're going to do a very slimmed down version of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
the highlights of how this works.
Right. I,
And
I think, right, just for those of you who aren't familiar with it or need a refresher.
sure.
In short, the State of the Covenant is, again, an annual guided conversation between you and your spouse, and it's designed to help you assess the satisfaction of the level of oneness in your marriage. And what I love about it is that we broke it down into all realms of intimacy, so that then you can find better ways to serve and connect with each other moving forward. And so by realms of intimacy, I mean that as we have put it, the thinking through your spiritual intimacy,
Mhm.
your mental intimacy, emotional intimacy, and sexual intimacy. And so, you can kind of do this like big picture, like, well, how was our marriage in 2023? And that might be a decent conversation, but we find it's much more powerful to break it down and say, what's our spiritual connection like?
Mhm.
What's our mental connection like? Walking through each realm of intimacy helps break it down, and it helps you then better consider, you know, more closely how you are. And you will likely find we're doing really well in some areas, and we've got lots of room for improvement in other
Well,
areas.
what you also might find is that you each have a different assessment of where that is. And
Yes,
that's also an important point of
it is.
conversation, why one of you may not have the same feeling about where you are. And we've created some questions to help you fully consider each of these realms,
Yes.
asking some questions that just kind of dig into how do we feel, what are we doing, what are we not doing. Those are some
Right.
things, and we also would encourage you to consider, like, what are the highs and the lows? When did we feel the closest
Yes.
emotionally or spiritually? When did we feel the furthest apart? And
Yeah.
that can sometimes be an important exercise to consider that.
Right. Each spouse rates their assessment of the current quality of intimacy in each of these realms. Using those questions that, will help guide you through that. And then we encourage you to share your ratings and discuss the current state of your relationship, how you've gotten to where you are, both the good and the bad.
Right.
And then based on your spouse's feedback, then we encourage you to take that next step, the important step of setting personal and couple goals for your coming year. And within that, we would encourage you to even set a very specific date for when you're going to reassess the
Right.
progress that you have made.
Right.
I think that is key. And that's been a part when we have used this and had years where, we've really seen a lot of progress in our marriage and success with this tool. It's been because we have that reassessment
Correct.
meeting and we hold each other accountable to what we said we wanted to be working on individually.
Right. We don't just have this conversation again in a year
Mhm.
or even in 6 months, but we're setting up some regular dates to hold each other accountable.
Right.
What have I done to move towards the goal that we set out to have? So that's an important step as well. So again, all of this is detailed
Mhm.
in these other episodes in much greater detail, much greater length, and the specific ways that we walk through this process.
Yeah.
So again, if you're not familiar with the process or if you've never done it before, we encourage you to look up those episodes, download the form, the conversation guide, and get this done.
So, in summary, we encourage you to have the state of the covenant conversation. Assess all areas of intimacy in your marriage. Set those specific goals for improving each realm of intimacy. And then, most importantly, set
Right.
a date to reassess your progress and hold one another accountable.
There you go. 3 simple steps.
There you go. All right, Matt, give us our wrap up.
For real progress in your marriage, it's important to critically evaluate the past and to set goals for the future. A thorough evaluation of your marriage should include assessment of each realm of intimacy: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And finally, please help support Intimate Covenant by sharing and rating the podcast. We would be especially grateful if you would join us on Patreon.
Now it's time to grab your spouse and your Bible and head to your kitchen table to have the conversation about the state of your covenant. How would you assess your marriage relationship and what are your goals for the coming year?
We would love to hear your feedback about this episode and others. Certainly, we would appreciate your questions. Contact us by emailing podcast@intimatecovenant.com, or you can go to our website to submit an anonymous feedback form, intimatecovenant.com/podcast. Thanks again to Open Door and to Derek Finley for sponsoring the podcast. Contact Open Door Financial Advisors at opendoorfa.com, where finances meet faith and family.
Thanks to all of you for listening, subscribing, rating, and sharing the podcast in 2023. We're truly humbled by all of your encouragement and your support. We look forward to 2024 with you. Thanks especially to our Patreon subscribers for coming alongside us in that very real way. We love you. If you would like to join Intimate Covenant by supporting the podcast and our greater mission to share God's plan for intimate marriage and holy sexuality, subscribe at patreon.com/intimatecovenant.
Until next time, keep striving and don't settle.